James, I'm really excited about this conversation because so many people are confused about diet, supplements, and what actually matters for their health. And there's a lot of noise out there. So I want clarity today. I want to find out what's real and what's not. Now, before we begin and we get into the science, I'd love for you to start and just tell us a little about yourself. What originally pulled you into this world of health, nutrition, and supplements?
Stacey, thanks so much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I have been in the health and wellness industry for 21, 22 years now, and so your name is well known to me. Your books and your podcast, and customers asking if I'd seen the show or heard this or that. And so, yeah, just an honor to be here. To answer your question, I am the head of marketing for PureThera Pro RX. You can ignore the RX. We don't do pharmaceuticals, and in many cases, don't believe in those. Of course, they're essential sometimes, but we are a dietary supplement company who specializes in formulas for people who read labels, for people who care about ingredients and dosages and what is there, and almost as importantly, what isn't there.
Yeah.
So that's the company I'm working for. I live in Wichita, Kansas with my wife, my children, my dog. Quiet little neighborhood, and I guess I couldn't ask for much more. But yeah, you ask how did I get into health and wellness and why have I been here for over 20 years and never left? People often I'll get offered jobs from friends or neighbors occasionally, like come be a salesperson, come be our SVP. And I couldn't possibly, like the salaries I've been offered are occasionally hard to turn down. But they're really not because health and wellness, it's not the only thing I care about, but I have come to believe that, your physical health, your mental health, and your spiritual health, they're the most important things in the world. Your material wealth, it's important. I care about it. But it pales in comparison to your health. And so that's why I'm here. It's why I've been here so long. And the impetus for getting into it was losing my health. So, 21 years ago, lost my health completely. I can tell that story later. I don't want to bore everybody with it now, but yeah, I had a major health crisis, lost it, and all I cared about in the world was getting it back. And once I got it back, I just made it my mission in life to help other people get theirs back and never lose it.
I love that. I love that. Now, was there a moment where you realized how most people don't even actually understand how this industry works?
Yeah, I mean, you say, was there a moment? I think literally have been thousands of moments. And so health, I think it's fair. It's okay. I'm not gonna admonish anyone for having this attitude because I had the same attitude. You probably did too. I think it's common. We take it for granted.
Hmm.
When you have a roof over your head, you take it for granted. When you have health and you can run a mile without stopping and you can go have martinis on the patio at a downtown bar and then wake up the next morning for work and no complaints, no anxiety, no pain, no fear. You take it for granted. And when you lose the ability to do that, whether it's the ability to walk without pain or go to the bathroom every day or think clearly without terrible brain fog, whatever it is that you've lost the ability to do, that's when suddenly it's all put into perspective and you realize what the value of being able to do that was. And let me be concise and answer your question. Every day in my personal life and in my career, I do realize that, yeah, people take that for granted. And it's the little things where, you pack your child's lunch and send them on the school trip. And then maybe
Yeah.
one of the other parents says, "Well, why aren't you just letting them eat the Domino's pizza or whatever it is?" And I say, "Well, there's several reasons for that. Not I like Domino's. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure everybody's had it here or there, but it's just not something I want my kids to eat all the time. And so yeah, we make different decisions, and other people find those decisions strange or silly or unnecessary, or maybe they think it's over the
Yeah.
top. But really, I think we're just trying to do the best we can by them and protect their health and minimize their exposure to ingredients and other things that we don't want in their little bodies. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I see that. I see that every day.
People hear the words like genetics. and they or epigenetics and all the time, but they don't really know what that means. Can you explain the difference in simple terms?
Yeah, so the simplest term, your genetics is it's your genetic makeup. It's your genome. It's every gene in your body so that your genes are made up of DNA. And that DNA is arranged into genes, which themselves we could refer to as like gene snippets. And those
Yeah,
genes can be mutated, or they can be normal, or they can be turned on, or they can be turned off, or they could be double mutated.
yeah,
And I say the word mutated, and people might think like horror movie, right? But it's
right.
actually incredibly common for people to have mutations on genes. In fact, I
Mhm.
would argue that more than 50% of Americans have a gene mutation. And because of what I'm going to call healthy user bias,
Hmm.
I'm going to guess that more than 75% of the people listening to me right now have one. Otherwise, why else would they be here, right? Have they had a health crisis in the past? And did they have that crisis because they're undermethylating or they've got a mutation on COMT, which maybe causes them to detoxify neurotransmitters slower. And so they're more prone to stress and anxiety. So
Yeah,
I could go on and on, but that's your genetics, right? Like it's the blueprint, the genetic blueprint that makes you you. Epigenetics is a little different and it's really interesting and it's not something you can control. But epigenetics is the science that studies how your ancestors' genetics impact your own. And
hmm,
I'm not going to get deep into the weeds on it because I think I'll probably start losing people, but I think it's important to know that what you eat and what you use on your face and on your armpits and the shower water that you do or don't filter, right? And
yep,
the extra cocktail at the New Year's party you do or don't have. Every decision impacts your microbiome, your genome,
yep,
your levels of toxic chemicals, how hard your body has to work. And those things can turn on and off genes.
yes.
Well, when it comes time, if you're, if you're going to have a baby, whether you're a male or a female, right? If you're going to have a baby, the genes that you have mutated, turned on, and turn off inevitably impact your offspring.
Hmm.
And that is, in a nutshell, what epigenetics is. And so, in the simplest terms, if your grandfather lived through a famine from 9 to 13 years old, and sporadically only had sporadic access to nutrition and kind of lived off cabbage and potatoes with very little protein and maybe wasn't getting the cleanest water in that period of life, that's going to change his genes. So
Yeah.
the genes that regulate hunger hormones, cortisol, body fat set point, appetite,
Hmm.
all these different fundamental systems for your body and your health and how you look and how you feel, what your grandpa went through as a prepubescent boy will impact your son or daughter.
Yeah.
And because of his genes impacted your parents' genes, and then their genes impacted yours, and now yours will impact your children. And that's epigenetics. I think
Yeah.
it's fascinating. I could talk for an hour
Mhm.
about it, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
If you have any more questions, let me know. I'll geek out with you. But
Yeah, I find it fascinating myself also. Now, how much control do we actually have over our health, like through daily choices and even genetics aren't perfect also, you
mhm.
know? So how much control do we really have?
It depends on who you ask. If you want my opinion, which is it's an educated opinion, I'm going to tell you roughly 50%. Okay. And here's what I mean by that. So your genetics will often determine, you know, different aspects of your health. Like how prone are you to stress? How prone are you to weight gain? How
Hmm.
rapidly will you age in an oxidative environment? Like
Yeah.
real detailed things like that. So your genes, some people will say are responsible for 25% of that. Other people will say 75.
Yeah.
I am of the mind that I like to say you've got 50% control, which is a lot, right? And I
Right.
actually worked for a world famous functional medicine physician. I don't want to misquote her here, but I believe she said your genetics are really only 25% of the picture because you can change, like just because your grandfather went through that famine,
Yeah.
you can use functional medicine principles. I'm not going to advise people do this, but you can use things like supplements, fasting, detoxification, high intensity exercise, low intensity yoga, meditation, and there's so many other modalities that I'm sure you've tried or heard of, like
Yeah.
tuning forks. And I mean, there's so many things out there.
Yeah.
But you can use these practices and principles to change your genetics, right? Like your DNA is your DNA, but which genes are turned on and off, which one are firing at full force. And if you do have gene mutations, that may cause you some, let's say, handicaps, right? Like your neighbor is methylating at 100%. You're only methylating at 33%. And
Hmm.
so he or she might be able to have five martinis at happy hour and be fine. You have two and have a crushing headache by the time you go to bed, right? Because you're under
Right.
methylating and you're intolerant to alcohol. So yeah, your genetics play a role, but if you support where you're coming up short with supplements and with diet and with exercise, and maybe you need an hour extra sleep. Maybe your neighbor needs 7 hours, maybe you need 8.5. Maybe your neighbor doesn't need to drink water till the morning. Maybe you need to make sure you drink water before bed. So you can, whatever life has dealt you as far as your genetic blueprint, you can prop it up, support it, and so on with, diet, just different modalities like diet and supplements. So
Yeah.
yeah, 50, let's say 50% and optimistically 75% control.
I love that. That's very interesting. Now, why do two people eat the same diet, the same supplement, they take the same supplements and they get a totally different result?
That's let's go back to genetics on that one, but there's more to it than that. So let's say two roommates, right? They're both 25 years old, they're both male or female, doesn't matter. Um,
Yeah.
they're eating pizza. Yeah, what do 25-year-old roommates eat, right? Like chicken
Yeah.
nuggets, pizza often, grilling steaks here and there, fast food hamburgers. One of them could be, and let's say they're both 5'10" or 6 feet, let's just say 6 feet tall. One of them could be overweight and 240 pounds. The other one could be underweight and 170 pounds.
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly answer, like, I could talk about this question for 2 hours straight, and I think it'd be interesting. But I absolutely won't do that to you. What I will say is that it's the genetics that decide how is person A going to tolerate this diet versus person B. Because
Yeah.
if person A is methylating at like has no genetic mutations and is a great methylator. Methylation, by the way, is just in a nutshell, it's your body's ability to A, convert the B vitamins in your food
Yeah.
into usable forms that are needed for energy production, detoxification, enzyme manufacture, but also methylating toxins to break them down and if help the liver efficiently remove them from the body. So, assuming they're drinking the same amount of water, eating the same amount of food, eating the same amount of fiber, one of them could have, sorry, diarrhea, the other one could be constipated. And it
Yeah.
it all depends on their genetics, but also so many other factors. Maybe one of them has black mold in behind their closet, because of the leaky toilet next door.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them experienced trauma as a child that altered their genetic blueprint or altered the way their neurotransmitters behave. Maybe
Right.
one of them had two concussions playing football as a
Right.
child, and little slights like that to our microbiome. Like maybe one of them had two ear infections as a baby and had to take antibiotics twice. Now their microbiome has been wiped out. They've never taken a probiotic in their life to fix that. They've never eaten sauerkraut and kombucha and cultured foods to fix that. And so they've
Yeah.
constantly got diarrhea or constipation where the other one's just fine and regular like clockwork. Um, any little slight to our bodies, and I think the big ones, the really big slights in my mind, starting at birth. And I won't, some things are just too divisive to talk about, and so I won't even get into those. But whether you had a vaginal birth or a cesarean, that's a big deciding factor right there.
Right.
If it's one or the other, like let's say you do have a cesarean, both of my kids were born by cesarean.
Yeah.
There are ways, that we'll call that a handicap, but there are ways to make up for that, right? Like, and,
Hmm.
and people can Google those. We don't need to, talk about every little detail about that right now, but the big ones are starting right how you're born, and then I'm going to skip over all the divisive stuff, and we'll go right to antibiotic use. We'll go, are you breastfed or are you formula fed?
Yeah.
What did mom eat and drink or not eat and drink while you were breastfed? Was she taking a prenatal with good folate and eating fish or taking her omega-3s? And was she eating at least 50, 60 grams of protein a day, ideally 90 or more? There's so many things that can impact like the nutrition a baby gets and how its little immune system and microbiome and all that are formed. But
Yeah.
then one of the biggest ones is antibiotic use in childhood.
Hmm.
So whether or not you end up with allergies and chronic sinus issues and ear infections and things like that is often determined by, were you put on antibiotics as a kid every time you had a fever or an ear infection, or did your parents use some garlic ear oil and give you a hot bath?
Right.
And so I'm not going to demonize allopathic Western medicine. Like sometimes you need an antibiotic, right? Like sometimes it'll
Yeah.
save your life. Um, but there are statistics out there that show that I don't want to butcher the statistic, but a very high number of prescriptions for antibiotics are actually worthless and unnecessary, and they do much more harm than good. Some antibiotics literally have a black box warning on them from the FDA, which is the
Yeah.
strongest warning that a prescription drug can have, where it's like, this could kill you. And if
Right.
it doesn't kill you, it could maim you and cause like irreparable harm to your brain or your tendons or your digestive tract. And yeah, I mean, I've taken antibiotics that had that black box warning. I didn't know. I just did what the doctor said.
Right.
Um, do I think that messed me up pretty good? I do. But sometimes it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think those levers that get pulled sometimes by us, sometimes by our parents, sometimes by bad luck, are some of
Yeah.
the bigger things that will impact kind of, how we turn out. And I will say right here and now, every bad lever that could be pulled,
Right.
concussions, antibiotics, allergies, asthma, medications, all that stuff, I had it all. I had it all. And so if you also are like me and had a childhood like I did, poor quality food. My mom was 16. She didn't know anything about nutrition and health, God bless her. But, um,
Hmm.
I think she smoked cigarettes, as was the fashion back then.
Yeah. It was.
Um, I guess what I want to say is don't despair if you had a childhood like that and a rearing like that. You
Yeah.
can you can fix it. Like,
Yes.
it takes work and effort, but you can fix it. So I'll stop rambling and give it back to
No,
you.
it's a good point because we all came from that generation,
Yeah,
and it's never too late. We can fix our bodies. We can fix, both physically and mentally. We can fix it.
yeah,
It takes time, like you said, but we can definitely do it.
yeah.
Now, why does diet advice feel more confusing than ever before?
That's a great question. I often joke with friends. Like, I have a lot of friends that are just very, 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 like, not inquisitive at all about
Yeah,
health, wellness, medications, supplements. They're just not inquisitive at all because they haven't been through what I've been through. They haven't been exposed to the knowledge that I've been exposed to. They haven't had
yeah,
decades of anecdotes and testimonies and learning and study to really make them an expert in the field. And that's all right. I understand that. Um, but I often joke that it's 2026, it's 2025
mhm,
last year when I told this joke the most, and we have no idea what to eat for breakfast. Like the human race can launch satellites and build nuclear reactors and
yeah,
mine to nearly the center of the earth, right? We can build jets that fly past the speed of sound and can chase the sun so that the sun never stops setting, the Concorde.
Mhm.
But we don't know what to eat for breakfast. Um,
Exactly.
some of us know, but even then, even the ones of us that know, I think we question like, should I go carnivore? Should I do a juice fast? Because
Yeah.
the answers are not handed to us. They're not
Yeah.
handed to us on a silver platter. There's literally no empirical data out there, no immutable truth that says or shows, here's what every human should eat. And I
Right.
think the reason for that is manifold. Like, one, there are major powers out there that don't want you eating healthy. They don't want you to know the truth. I'll just go ahead and say the guy's name, Ansel Keys, decades and decades ago, basically tricked the whole country into thinking that margarine and sugar and white flour were health foods and that eggs and beef and all of that was poisonous.
Yeah.
And it could be a divisive topic. Like we might have vegans and vegetarians listening, and I respect that. I was actually vegetarian for over a decade, and I was
Mhm.
vegan for I don't even remember how long, maybe 5.5 years of that. Um, I don't subscribe or prescribe to that diet anymore. I don't think that's best for me, but for the people that it's working for, I say more power to you and rock on.
Yeah.
Um, but I think most of us need some, you know, eggs and protein from animals in order
Mhm.
to be the healthiest version of ourselves, especially if we've lost our health.
Mhm.
I think using those foods, it's a lot easier to rebuild what you've
Yeah.
lost. If you're in Hawaii and you're constantly in the sunshine and you have access to like the freshest produce in the world and pure, volcano filtered water. Yeah, that's probably most Americans just aren't in that boat, right? Like
Yeah.
we're driving on highways, breathing in particulate from tires and exhaust, and we're surrounded by EMF all day long and fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
And when we're in that environment, I think we need a lot more nutrition than humans ever have in the history of humankind. Like we are
Right.
subject to more environmental toxins and stressors now in 2026 than we were 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and certainly 150 years ago, right? Like
Yeah.
EMF and blue light, well, blue light from sun, sure, but that was the only way to get blue light back then was the sun.
Yeah.
And so there was really no way to disrupt your melatonin or your circadian rhythm back then unless you forced yourself to stay awake and drank caffeine all night. But yeah, we have it a lot easier than them in some ways, but in other ways, in less tangible ways, they had it a lot easier than us. So anyway, I've digressed. I think the reason diet is so confusing is because what works for one person isn't going to work for another. And
Mhm.
there are some big power players out there that are constantly trying to mislead you for profit, whether it's
Yeah.
to get you to buy their products or to keep you sick and on their medications, whatever it is. Won't get into conspiracy theories or anything, but yeah, the knowledge is obfuscated
Mhm.
by some big players, and what works for me might not work for you. But I think following traditional wisdom, um, and not overdoing alcohol and not overdoing sugar and making sure you're getting enough fiber. Um, and if you've got an autoimmune disease or some kind of digestive issue like colitis or Crohn's disease,
Mhm.
then yeah, you might want to look at fasting and possibly a fully carnivore diet or like an autoimmune protocol diet. If you
Right.
don't have any issues like that, and I think that's a great answer to your question. Let me wrap this up. Carnivore. Everybody's heard of it. Like if you go on Twitter, some of the best looking, healthiest people in the world are talking about carnivore.
Yeah.
I think it's fabulous, a fabulous way to get your health back if you've got autoimmune issues. Like if the
Right.
antibodies in your body are freaking out every time you eat grains or legumes or pumpkin seeds or spinach or whatever it is. But if you don't have those issues, do you need to be on carnivore? I actually don't think so. I think a balanced diet for those people is better. And so it really just depends on who you are and what you're going through. And I would advise everyone like reach out to like a nutritionist or an expert, somebody who's been in this for 20 years,
Exactly.
and get some advice. Read a book. Don't just watch a commercial and be like, "Oh, I don't need to change my diet. I'll just take this drug and go on that injection, and then I'll be fine."
Right.
Yeah, I would encourage people to try to target their issues through diet and supplementation.
I agree. Now, from your perspective, why does one size fits all nutrition fail so often?
Uh, that's it in a nutshell. Because one person might have overused antibiotics and have Crohn's disease or celiac disease. One person might have grown up next to a cornfield where they were spraying pesticides all the time and it was in their air
Yeah.
and in their water, and now they've got chronic inflammatory response syndrome. One guy might have had black mold in his condo
Mm.
and just, wrecked his immune system with that.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
many people have different needs, but also different things that they react to and that they're sensitive to.
Right.
Especially people in our sort of ecosphere, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, you're the people we talked about earlier before we started recording, the people that take health for granted, they just eat whatever. Sometimes
Hmm.
they're even aware, like, oh, if I eat McDonald's, it's going to give me the runs, but that's all right. It's just the price I pay, right? You know, but the people that like read labels and care and are aware of issues with their body, especially that crop up when they eat certain foods, you have
Yeah.
to like, this is why one size doesn't fits all doesn't work, because
Yeah.
one person might literally need to be on like a bone broth diet to rebuild their intestinal lining and calm down their immune system before they eat blueberries and pumpkin seeds. Another
Right.
person can eat those things all day long for 3 days straight with no complaints.
Exactly.
It also depends on your activity level. Like some people need 120 grams of protein a day. Other people might only need half of that. Some
Yeah.
people eat a ton of grapefruit and apples and zucchini every day. Other people don't eat any of that, and they need to drink 3 times as much water, which
Right.
is giving them 3 times as much chlorine and stripping out 3 times as many trace minerals. So now these people need more trace minerals. I don't want to say it's a puzzle or intimidate anyone, but I think diet has got to be it's got to be curated for the individual, and that's why working with somebody I think is the best idea. And not everybody can afford to work with somebody. So in that case, just get educated, read books, watch YouTube videos, and start taking the best ideas from each
Yeah.
school of thought.
And I always say to people, be careful where you're getting your information from. Make sure it's a professional that's speaking. Make sure they have a background in the area that they're speaking. So if they're speaking on nutrition, make sure they have, a nutrition background, that they're well
Hmm.
educated, because I see so many conflicting information out there, and a lot of it, is not really true, and people don't even realize it, but they believe it because it's out there. So it's
Yep.
I always look where my when I'm listening to something, where, who is that person, and what are what's their background.
Yep. I agree with you. I would caveat that with background matters. But I would also caveat that with like if you go to a hospital, the diet there is informed by like a panel of decades tenured nutritionists,
Yeah.
dietitians. And
Yeah.
what do they give their patients? Artificially flavored and artificially colored jello, uh, non-organic glyphosate sprayed oatmeal,
Yeah.
orange juice that's been pasteurized. I could go on and on, but like it's really
Yeah.
like how did a couple of dietitians get together and think this is a good idea? So no
Exactly.
no disrespect to dietitians. Some of the smartest, most health-minded people I've ever known were dietitians. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a good point.
yeah, so the background matters, but also like what are they talking to you about? Are they telling you to just go ahead and drink sodas and candy and it's fine?
Yeah.
I'd watch out for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if someone is overwhelmed by conflicting diet advice, what's a smarter way to think about food and supplements together?
I would say balance. So when it comes to diet, if you have an autoimmune disease, which so many people do now, whether it's
Yeah.
celiac or Crohn's or IBS, whatever it is, you got to get that under control. Stop torturing yourself. Stop eating the way you always eat and having flare-ups every week or two. You've got to get that under control.
Yeah.
But for the rest of us that, let's say, have our digestion under control, I would say take a balanced approach. I used to work at a company called Natural Grocers. I worked there for over 7 years, and I was a nutritional health coach in one of the Austin, Texas stores. And they trained us. This was after I also attended IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and got my
Hmm.
certification as like a holistic nutritionist there. So I've had some experience with coaching and counseling. It wasn't my calling. I think only helping one person at a time. I didn't vibe with that. It felt good, but
Yeah.
it also felt like I could try to reach tens of thousands or even millions of people. Anyway,
Right.
so I have a background here, but I will tell you, take a balanced approach. At Natural Grocers, I remember they had this plate diagram, and they
Yeah.
showed like 1/4 of the plate, protein, like animal protein, 1/4 of the plate healthy fats, and then half the plate vegetables. And that's what I tell people to go for. Now,
Yeah.
which vegetables and which healthy fats, I think you have to, you've got to figure out what you like and what you tolerate. But, and it's also just a diagram, right? Like if you're eating pot roast, which is pretty fatty, you don't need to also have 1/4 of your plate fat, right? But like if you're
Yeah.
having some pot roast and then a bunch of vegetables where you're getting carbohydrates and fiber and micronutrients and you've got good protein, you've got some healthy fats because you went with the grass-fed chuck roast, I'd say you're in great shape there with a meal
Right.
like that. Again, provided you can tolerate things like cabbage and carrots. Um, and then supplements wise, this goes back. It's a long convo. I'm gonna try to be super concise here. It goes back to what I said earlier. It's the easiest time to be alive. It's
Yeah.
also the most nutritionally demanding time to be alive. And this is a sort of a conundrum. I'll explain why. I already mentioned everything from your cell phone to your earbuds to your uh, computer, your laptop that you're working on at 9 o'clock at night, trying to finish up that paper or that podcast.
Yeah.
Use your blue light glasses. I've got mine over here. I'd be wearing them now, but I get a really silly reflection when I'm recording. Um, to your television that you're watching at night, and so on and so on and so on. Literally to planes flying over your head and they're burning jet fuel and the exhaust from the plane is drifting out over your backyard and now you're walking in that the next day and your dog's rolling in it and then you pet the dog and you get the toxins on your hand and now they're on your clothes. You're washing your jeans with your wife's Lululemons. Those are shedding microplastics into so we're exposed to just a nonstop barrage of
Yeah.
stressors in the form of toxins and electromagnetic frequency and like, excessive blue light.
Yeah.
Each one of those things requires extra nutrition. Case in point, the more blue light that enters your eye, the more blue light shear that impacts your macula. The more
Hmm.
blue light shear that impacts your macula, the more carotenoid antioxidants you need to protect your macula. That uses up your body's store of
Yeah.
zeaxanthin and astaxanthin, and if you're not eating those, well, then your vision is going to, it's not if or maybe if you're genetic. No, it's a simple matter of if I take a piece of leather and I rub my finger on it like this, eventually I'm going to rub a hole in that leather. And I don't
Yeah.
care how good that leather is, it will eventually give in to friction. And the same thing happens to the most delicate part of your eye.
Right.
So when you see people talking about eating sea vegetables and kale and taking these really unique sounding antioxidants like astaxanthin and zeaxanthin, some of these things you'd get from salmon, some you'd get from, edible flowers, which I doubt too many of us are eating. Some you get from kale. And that's why people say these are superfoods like salmon, and other brightly colored fish that are really pink. What makes it pink? It's astaxanthin. What does astaxanthin do? It protects your cornea
Mm,
and your macula. So yeah, the more blue light you get, the more of that antioxidant you need. The more tire particulate you inhale because you're driving on the highway,
yeah,
the more your lungs need to detox and the more water you need to drink. The more, say, personal care products you use with phthalates and plasticizing agents and stearates, and I go on, the more B vitamins you're going to need to methylate those toxins and remove them from your body.
right.
And even the more work stress, right? Like stress hormones like cortisol and epinephrine and adrenaline, you can't make those without cholesterol and B vitamins and vitamin C. And
Yeah.
so if you're not getting enough nutrients, which so few of us are
Hmm.
from our diets, you've got to supplement with them. Here's why I
Exactly.
said it's a conundrum. Our soil and the animals that we eat have less vitamins and minerals now than they ever have before. So we
Yeah.
need more nutrition now than we've ever needed as a human race.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we're also getting less than we've ever gotten as a human
Yeah.
race. Like
Hmm.
thankfully we have like a most of us have a wide variety to choose from. And so we
Yeah.
have the luxury, the blessing of being able to choose. I'm not saying eat kale all the time. I've said it a couple times, but you can choose kale, cauliflower, grass-fed beef, wild caught salmon. Thank goodness we can do that because that's
Yeah.
like even 100 years ago, that was very difficult to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, like because of industrial agriculture and monocropping, planting the same thing in the soil over and over and spraying these fields with these awful carcinogenic, toxic, like microbiome disrupting chemicals, we need more microbiome support in the form of like probiotics and prebiotics. And we
Yeah.
need more nutrients and minerals than we've ever needed before because they've done tons of studies. You can Google this. Google vitamin soil depletion, just something simple like that. And you'll find study after study that like in the 1950s, an orange had 800% more vitamin A than it has today.
Yeah.
In the 1950s, spinach had, I'm going to be hypothetical with these numbers, let's say 100 milligrams of magnesium per serving. Now it has 31. I mean, these
Right.
drastic drop-offs in iron, magnesium, and all the trace minerals like boron and vanadium. I could go on and on, but this is why, like, so many people are like, oh, you don't need supplements if you eat right. I beg to differ. This
Right.
is this is a hill that I will stand on and die on if needed. 100 years ago, I agreed with you. If you were wealthy and you had a wide variety of foods to choose from, no, of course you didn't need supplements back then because you were out in the sun all the time. You're getting tons of vitamin D. You weren't exposed to the stress and toxins that we are today. There was no EMF bombarding you every night. You turn off your router. I bet you probably do, Stacey. You turn
Hmm.
off your router at night, but even with your router off, pull up your phone and press the Wi-Fi button. How many Wi-Fi networks is it detecting? Every one of your neighbors and the
Yeah.
store down the block. Like it's detecting all of those. Well, that means that every one of those routers that's broadcasting that signal is broadcasting it right into your brain and right into your body. That has an impact on health. I'm not going to get into that. Sound like
Yeah.
a I sound like a pretty wild guy, but you can Google the impact. Like we've done
No,
the
I know.
studies, it affects birds, insects, humans, it affects soil. So yeah, this is where I'll say I went off on a tangent there, but let me just say this is why you should take a multivitamin, right?
Yeah.
Your diet, no matter, even if you're juicing, it is no doubt leaving gaps. And
Yeah.
every time you don't get enough in a day, that
Hmm.
creates a deficit that if you don't make up for the next day, it just stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks. And the next thing you know, I've got brain fog. I've got low testosterone. I have no libido. My hair is falling out up here. There's so many things that can
Yeah.
happen. Where if you just supplemented like we said with the genetics, you got to kind of prop things up and fill in the gaps if you
Yeah.
want to have full vitality. You need supplements to do that. I don't think this is a problem that we can eat our way out of, at least not most of us. Again, If
Yeah.
you're in Hawaii and you're catching the salmon right out of the stream and you're eating the freshest produce in the world and you live on an organic farm and you
Yeah.
sleep 9 hours a night and you meditate every day, man, I am
Hmm.
jealous. And maybe they don't need to take any supplements, but the rest of us, yeah, I think we have to fill in the gaps.
I agree. I agree 100%. Now, most people don't know how to read a supplement label. What are the biggest red flags?
The absolute biggest red, I'm gonna maybe promote my company a little bit here, if I may.
Okay. Hmm.
Um, the absolute biggest red flag for me is not necessarily what's on the nutrition label, which that is, there are other red flags there we can get into. But the very biggest one is hidden under the supplement facts panel.
Hmm.
I don't have a bottle on my desk, but I'm going to use this just as like a prop. Here's the supplement facts panel, right?
Yeah.
But if you go down below that, you're going to see other ingredients.
Yes.
And in the other ingredients is often where I think the real story about that supplement is being told,
Yes.
because that's where you're going to find fillers, binding agents,
Mhm.
excipients, flow agents, waxes. I could go on and on, but the gist of it is those ingredients are not like you're buying that product to be healthy
Yeah.
or to reclaim your health or to accelerate getting your health back, whatever it is, or fill in a
Right.
gap or to help you detoxify. But
Hmm.
then there's all this junk in there that we want to believe is inert, right? But your body
Hmm.
still has to get rid of it, right? Like your
Yeah.
body still has to like separate the wheat from the chaff, so to
Yeah.
speak. And that takes work and that takes nutrients and that often requires like fiber or binding agents in your gut or
Mhm.
enzymes or methylation to do.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we want to believe they're inert, but they're not. Like when you're taking magnesium stearate, is a tiny amount going to hurt you or even be noticeable? I'm going to go ahead and say no. For 99.9% of the population, if I give you two magnesium tablets, one with magnesium stearate as like a binder or filler, and
Yeah.
one without, you're not going to notice a difference taking one. But here's
Right.
the problem. Many of us take several supplements a day.
Hmm.
Maybe we take a multivitamin, maybe we take a fish oil, maybe we take a magnesium or some CoQ10. I could go on and on.
Right.
God, people like me, like I'm gonna call myself a bit of a uh, like a category guru. We're taking even more interesting things. Like I'm doing 10 milligrams of boron, and I'm also using mucopolysaccharides to support tendon health, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
But most of us, we take one, two, maybe three supplements. And the problem is, if you look at the other ingredients, you're going to see that like carnauba wax, magnesium stearate, silicon dioxide, methyl cellulose, and all this other stuff that they've put into your tablet or your capsule as a filler. It's
Hmm.
not put in there, Stacey, to make you healthy. It's
Yeah.
not put in there to make the product work better. It's put
Hmm.
in there to make it cheaper to
Yeah.
manufacture
Hmm.
because it helps the machines fill the capsules smoother, right? That's why they call it a flow agent. These little machines that are filling like 100 capsules per minute. You put a little sand in there and they run faster and smoother, and you don't have to shut them down and clean them as often. Is that a good reason to put sand in the capsule or magnesium stearate, which is it's a magnesium sounds nice, right? But stearic acid, do we really need to put that? Stearic acid used to be a byproduct of glue making. And what, so they had to find a use for that, right?
Yeah.
And it ends up in our vitamins. Um, it's put in there to make the capsule look full because like the capsule can hold 300 milligrams of powder, let's say,
Yeah.
but your supplement's only 180 milligrams. So
Hmm.
what's the other 120 milligrams? Why does the capsule look full? It's because they've put non-organic pesticide sprayed rice flour and magnesium stearate and all these other things I'm talking about, sand, paper pulp. They put all kinds of junk in there. And this
Yeah.
isn't some brands. This is all brands. I say
Yeah.
all because I'm literally only aware of like us and one or two other companies, like not in the world necessarily, but that are like available on Amazon, for instance,
Yeah.
that don't do this. Everybody does it. It's
Hmm.
it's a cost-cutting measure, and it is a measure they take to make the capsules look full because they know
Yeah.
if they just fill the capsules, you know, three-fifths of the way, people look at it and they're like, well, this isn't even full. I'm getting ripped off. Or why is this one a little bit fuller than that one? It's not even consistent. And then people now they think there's a quality issue when really the highest quality supplements in the world, that's what they should look like. There should
Yeah.
be a gap. Because if there's no gap, you know they filled it with junk. And you can, again, pick up your label and look at other ingredients and see what junk they slipped in and they basically
Yeah.
tricked you with. So the front of the label just says 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA, and you think, oh, that sounds great. Look at other ingredients though. You know, what else is in there? Um, and that so that's the biggest red flag for me on a supplement is are they taking these cost-cutting measures to trick you into thinking this is a high quality product, but also to make it quicker and easier for them to produce. So
Right.
sure, their supplement is cheaper and the capsule looks full, but
Hmm.
that's, I don't know. I tend to think of that like a clown in makeup, right? Like with all the
Yeah.
fake wig, the fake rainbow wig and the all the makeup on. It just it totally obfuscates the truth.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say, and I'll be quick on this one, is are they, and this one's a little harder, right? Because you have to have some education in this vertical to understand this. Are
Yeah.
they using real quality ingredients in doses that have been shown in clinical trials to be efficacious?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, like you'll hear like Dr. Oz or Oprah or whoever you listen to, you know, Gary Brecka, whoever it is, they'll say something like, "Oh yeah, everybody should take a folate or a CoQ10. Everybody should do that."
Hmm.
And then you just turn around and go to Amazon or Google and you type in CoQ10 supplement. And then you think, oh, here's one for $5. I'll get that one. And what you failed to do there, and I don't blame you because you haven't been educated on it. Not you, but most of us haven't been educated on this,
Yeah.
is you didn't realize that, hey, that form of that nutrient is actually like the lowest quality one. It's from a country that is famous for adulterating ingredients or
Yeah.
literally just like defrauding, like they will. It's pretty common practice to be like, okay, I'm going to order 1,000 kilos of Ceylon cinnamon because it's really good for like blood sugar balance, et cetera, et cetera. And
Yeah.
then that's what you pay for. That's what the spec sheet says. That's what the purchase order says. But then you get it and you test it. That's not Ceylon cinnamon. That's the cheaper, that's Vietnamese cinnamon. It's not even the same. Like, okay, it is cinnamon, but it has completely different profiles of the
Right.
bioactives that make it healthy. Um, and that goes for literally everything, creatine, magnesium, especially more expensive things like glutathione,
Yeah.
sulforaphane. These things are often faked. And there's a big supplement company out there called Now Foods. Many of you will have heard of this company. I used to sell them when I worked heck, I sold them for 12 years when I used to be in health retail. So I like them. They use fillers and they use ingredients from this country. But one of the so I don't buy them anymore, but one of the cool things they do is once a year or so, they buy a bunch of products off of different marketplaces. I won't mention which ones because I don't want to get myself in trouble.
Mhm.
So they'll buy like 10 different creatines in 2024 or 10 different CoQ10s in 2025. I think it was actually the opposite. I think they did the creatine last year and CoQ10 the year before. And then they'll just release the results to the public. So they'll buy the 10 best sellers and then they'll send them off to a laboratory, like one of the most trusted NSF certified laboratories in the country, Eurofins or
Right.
something like that, and they'll test them. And I am not kidding you when I say that more than 60% fail. So
Yeah.
you have something in the neighborhood of a 66% chance when you just go to a marketplace or Google and you
Hmm.
type in CoQ10 supplement thinking I'm going to do something good for my health today and I'm going to get a good
Yeah.
deal. you've got more than a 66% chance of getting something that is below label claim, adulterated, or fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
those are
yeah.
red flags I tell people to watch out for. It's a lot. You've got to find a company you trust or a couple of companies you trust and stick
Yeah.
with them. And if you want to try something new from a new company, I would try to, really do your homework on them. Like, are they doing third-party testing? Do they post their certificate of authenticity online for you to see? Um, do they have a great reputation with good reviews on their products? Have they been around for longer than a year? Just look for risk factors and do your best to mitigate those.
I agree. Now, is there a mistake that you see people make over and over again when choosing supplements?
I think, yes, there are several mistakes. One of them is, like I said, just buying these. I don't want to call them no-name brands because often the brands that fail are brands that sell really well. Like you might go to Amazon, or sorry, I probably shouldn't have said the marketplace name, but you might, yeah, actually, I think that's fair. You might go to Amazon, for instance, and just look up broccoli seed extract. And you might find one that has like, oh, 4.7 stars and like 2,500 reviews. That's got to be good, right?
Hmm.
Well, you have to be a little bit more careful than that. Again, I'm going to encourage people don't. So, this is the mistake people make time and time again. They look at the facade, they look at the front, they look at they buy a book based on the cover.
Yeah.
I'm a marketer. I've been a marketer for a long time. I can write some really sexy copy about a product, and I can take all these beautiful lifestyle photos that really don't have anything to do with the product. Like if I take like this chiseled guy who's super fit and has like the best hair and he's very attractive, or this like beautiful family that just looks like they have the, oh, I love their kitchen, I love their countertops. Oh, I just love to live that life. And I can show you these people in these settings with this
Yeah.
sexy copy talking about this product. But does that really tell you? Does it tell you what's in it? Does it tell you that it's authentic? Does it tell
Right.
you that the dosages chosen were based on real clinical trials? Does it tell
Yeah.
you that the form chosen was actually clinically studied and not some generic form from a country that we don't even do business with? It doesn't.
Exactly.
So be careful when you're going to a website or going to a marketplace and you're buying based on how nice the listing looks. I'm going to
Yeah.
encourage you look at the other ingredients, look to see did they even post the supplement facts panel? Can you even
Yeah.
see what's in it? Because so many times on some of these top sellers, they don't even post that. They don't
Yeah.
want you looking at that. They want you looking at their sexy marketing and making an impulse decision. They want you
Yeah.
to subscribe and forget you're subscribed and just keep buying their, oftentimes their junk. So
Yeah.
that's the mistake I see people make is they make an emotional purchasing decision, which I think is a very human thing to do.
Hmm.
But it's also the quickest way to separate. Nobody's a fool who's listening to this. If you're listening to this, you are actively trying to better your life and support a great cause and you care about your health. But it reminds me of that old saying, it's the quickest way to separate a fool from their money, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I'll reword that. Separate someone who's been fooled from their money.
Yes.
I like
Hmm.
that better. So that's the mistake I see people make over and over is quit falling for marketing. And I say that as a marketer. I am a marketer. I've been a marketer for years.
Yeah.
Quit falling for it, y'all. Quit, quit like especially like these videos of these people. Those people don't take the product. They're
Yeah.
actress and actors, right? Like, yeah, like judge the brand based on their real merits, not the celebrity they were able to pay $1 million to. Like that's not, yeah,
Exactly.
that's what I would tell people.
I agree. Now, if someone was listening and feels confused, skeptical, or burned by health advice, what's the one mindset shift you want them to walk away with today?
It goes back to what we said earlier. We both said it. You can do this. So even if you just have the worst luck with your genetics and your epigenetics, and you're having panic attacks every day, and life is just a really scary place to be right now, you can get better. You have to work at it.
Mhm.
You've done it. I've done it. My mom's done it, right? Like you can do it no matter how dismal it feels. You can start making choices. Drink the water instead of the diet soda.
Yeah.
Filter the water. You know,
Hmm.
um, if you're gonna take long hot showers, filter that water too, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be inhaling all the chlorine and fluoride and all the other stuff that doesn't belong in your lungs. And
Right.
so I would say just start making little choices that you can, even if money's tight, you can't necessarily afford to go buy $100 worth of supplements.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just start with that water filter and you can start with not eating the fast food and making yourself a salad with some chicken, you know? So little tiny changes, baby steps. It sounds so cliche, but that's how you have to do it. If you try to
Yeah.
dive in, if you try to say, okay, I'm sick and I'm miserable,
Hmm.
so I'm going to suddenly do high intensity workouts 5 times a week, eat all organic, fast twice a day, juice twice a day. You'll drive yourself right off a cliff doing that. It's
Yeah.
not sustainable. People that do that, that live that sort of lifestyle, it's often their job to live like that. People
Yeah.
like me and you, Stacey, that work for a living, like I mean, if I'm not working, I'm cooking and cleaning and putting my kids to bed and waking them up and packing their lunch and filling their water bottle. And dang it, they didn't wash the water bottle. I got to wash this, like,
Yeah.
so I don't have time to do all that. So I have to make the healthy choices where I can.
Yeah.
And it's often like, one of the biggest things I do for my family, I do the grocery shopping. I'm
Mhm.
the person who knows labels, ingredients, seed oils, grass-fed, not grass-fed. So I make sure everything in the house is as good a quality as we can get it.
Right.
And then I do a pretty good job of cooking it too. I love to cook. And so that's what I would tell folks that are listening is make those baby steps. And like the biggest thing you can control is the food in your fridge and the food in your cupboards.
Right.
Um, if you're getting your groceries delivered, stock up when things are on sale so you can afford a good B vitamin.
Yeah.
If you're going into the store, stay the heck out of the center of the store. Shop the perimeter. That's where the produce is. That's where the meat is. That's where the grass-fed dairy is. That's where the good filtered water is. Like, don't go in the middle where all the crackers and cookies and canned foods. I'm not saying I've never opened a can, right? Like, I
Right.
sometimes I like beans, right? And I'm
Yeah.
probably just going to open a can and wash them off real good. But that's where you get yourself in trouble is the center of a grocery store. And for
Yeah.
goodness sake, start taking a multivitamin. It doesn't have to be one I sell.
Hmm.
But I would encourage everybody, if you're not taking one, please go find a good one. You can come to my website, purethera.com. I'm going to give your listeners a 15% off promo code. It's going to be Stacey, Stacey 15. So Stacey 15. And that'll get them 15% off their purchase at my website. They can get anything they want. Um, and email us, call us if you have questions. Like we have a CS team. We're all here. We enjoy talking to people. We enjoy helping people with questions. Again, it doesn't have to be us. Find a brand you like and trust. Your husband works for somebody. You got a neighbor that works for a great company. Just get yourself on a multivitamin, and then that's a good place to start your journey.
Yeah.
Do I think a multivitamin is enough? Depends on what your goals are and where you're at in life, but
Right.
maybe you need a fish oil and a magnesium as well, right? And of course,
Hmm.
there's other things, but yeah,
I love it. I love it. Now tell us a little about your products and your services that you provide.
yeah. So I was kind of admonishing most of my industry earlier for using the fillers and the flow agents and the excipients and the GMOs and the ingredients from countries that we have a strict policy against doing business with. Um, our company doesn't do any of that. So I don't want to sound like a total braggart, like patting ourselves on the back, but it's why I work here and not another company. It's as simple as that, right? Like there's hundreds of dietary supplements where companies where I could go be an investor or a co-founder or a marketing professional or a copywriter, whatever I wanted to do there. There's
Yeah.
always open positions. I do not care about them.
Mhm.
I'm here because of the products that Guy enjoy. My founders, long before I ever even knew about this company, they were
Yeah.
doing it the hard way. I am somebody who respects people that do it the hard way. And I feel very lucky and blessed that they did it all the hard way. And
Yeah.
then I just get to come in 4 years ago and sort of like, okay, they did the work. Now all I have to do is market it. So yeah, I mean, trials and tribulations. Like they spent years fighting with their manufacturers and their labs to make sure like it cannot be from this country. It cannot be from this source. It must be this patented version and it must be tested to this potency. And then once you get that, it has to be in this type of bottle. It can't be that bottle. It can't be this bottle. It's got to be one that's fully recyclable, BPA free. In some cases, we're using these expensive bottles because they absorb nascent oxygen inside the bottle and keep it
Yeah.
from oxidizing the probiotics. Like all that hard work, they already did it. And
Yeah.
then when their plate was finally like so full that they couldn't handle it anymore, they brought me on to, basically to help with the digital marketing aspect.
Right.
Um, so yeah, PureThera is awesome. I absolutely love this company. I hope I'm here for years to come. I would encourage, again, I'm going to mention that promo code again, Stacey 15, Stacey 15. Come check us out. We join our email list. I send out an educational article, I think every Tuesday night. Yeah, every Tuesday night I do that. Like tonight, I have an article coming out on folate versus folic acid. What's the
Hmm.
difference? Is one better
Right.
than the other? Is one dangerous? By the time your listeners hear this, that article will already, they can go search it on my website. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I could talk for another 10 minutes, but I'll leave it there. Just reach out to us if you have questions and come check us out. It's purethera.com.
And are you also on the social media? Can they find you on different social medias?
Yeah, we're on Facebook. Yeah, so it's slash PureThera on Facebook and X.com or Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. We're on
Hmm.
Instagram at PureThera. That's PureThera. We post there usually once, often twice a week. And
Hmm.
generally we're letting people know like, hey, here's our new article, or hey, this product is on sale right now. Come get it. Like I'm one of those people that I like to get a deal.
Yeah.
And so I'll often buy from brands when they're running a promo. So we make sure we do that because there are people like me out there that, well, they'll never buy it unless it's on sale.
Right.
I would encourage you, like if you need it, don't wait,
Right.
obviously. But then maybe when it goes on sale, stock up or something.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been amazing, James. I thank you so much for coming on this show. You gave us a world of information today, and it was amazing how you were so informative and so detailed. And I think, this is one thing that people have to understand is, people don't know enough about our bodies. Our bodies are consistently giving us messages, or it's consistently telling us what it needs, and sometimes we don't pay attention to what our body is telling us. And it
Hmm.
also warns us ahead of time when, things are going to happen. It gives us little signals here and there. Not all, I'm not going to say always, but, a lot of times, things can be brewing up and then something happens, but sometimes you get the little signals and you start seeing little changes and stuff like that. And tell people to just take time to know your body, understand your body. And it is so important. Diet and supplements is a very important part of health. And I do believe that. I've seen it in my own health, and we talked about different people get different, different reactions and, different outcomes. But for me, I could say that it definitely it changed my health completely. Overall, it did. It was a life-changing moment when I changed my diet, my lifestyle, added supplements, added vitamins to my diet. My whole health did a 360. So
Yep.
I'm so glad that you really educate people, because one thing that I talk to people and I hear so much is that people just buy because they go into a store that they know and trust. They just think whatever is on the market, whatever is on the shelf is good for them,
I wish that were
and
true.
I wish it was too. And, that it's not true. And I hear it especially in older people, and that, and a lot of people don't realize, and when you were talking about the other ingredients, that's usually in a font of one or two, and you can't even see it. And so you have to really be careful and really understand what is in the ingredients. And I always say, if you can't pronounce it, don't use it. And
Yeah.
And I thank you so much. You gave a lot of great information. I hope you'll be back on the show. I hope we could talk more. You mentioned a lot of different topics, and we didn't even touch base on a lot of other topics that I know that you have a lot of knowledge in. So I'd love to have you back. And thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Stacey. My pleasure.
Oh, thank you. You have a great day.
You too. Take care.